Hello, my name is Marcy Glaus, and I am the English Language Arts Education Consultant for the Department of Public Instruction. And the purpose of this video is to revisit the writing process approach, its definition, and the research base supporting it. Writing is not a three-step model of brainstorming, writing, and revising, which may imply that a writing process is the same for everyone. The example in this video of an actual writing process highlights the recursive nature of writing. The writing process definition, established by Stephen Graham and Karen Sandmel in 2011, is based on commonalities gathered from authorities in the field. This principle-based definition of the writing process states that students engage in cycles of planning, including setting goals, generating ideas, organizing ideas, translating, which is basically putting a writing plan into action, and reviewing, including evaluating, editing, and revising. Students write for real purposes and audiences, with some of their writing projects occurring over an extended period of time. Students' ownership of their writing is stressed, as is self-reflection and evaluation. Students work together collaboratively, and teachers create a supportive and non-threatening writing environment. The terms used in this video come from the principle-based definition and are applied in a recursive manner. As you will see, and as you have most likely experienced as a writer, at almost any point during a writing process, the writer may be planning, translating, or reviewing. The example you see here is a first attempt in the narrative genre, specifically a short story. I will talk through the recursive nature of the planning, translating, and reviewing in this draft all the way through the process to a final draft. Now, before I started writing, I generated some basic ideas about what would take place in the story, the people involved, and different parts of the setting, knowing already that I would have to do some research on some of these. I spent some time organizing my ideas in my head and decided to begin with the character Sarah watching her grandfather. I put my writing plan into action with the first two words and had to generate another idea of what name Sarah would actually call her grandfather in her head versus what would be the name to use for my audience, and decided to come back to this later, which is signified by the underlined space. I continued putting my writing plan into action until I had to evaluate word choice, but left a question mark instead of languishing there for too long. I moved on writing and promptly evaluated what I wrote, then revised a phrase to describe where the tractor was actually parked. I paused for several seconds and thought about how this man looked and what his first course of action was. I started writing and promptly stopped to think about this again and added a question for myself for future research purposes on this actual type of tractor and its functions. I continued writing, describing the intricate rules of starting the old tractor, evaluated word choice, and revised. Then I paused briefly to organize my ideas again on how to describe the tractor at this point as it continued rolling. And here, I decided to come back to the description because I was not satisfied with it, so I wrote the word fix for myself and decided to come back to this later. I kept writing, evaluated word choice, crossed out a start to a word, and picked back up, but evaluated the description again. Then I picked up with the first idea in this sentence, continuing the description, and actually wrote several words before stopping to remind myself of more research needed on the age of the tractor as a necessary detail. The writing continued until the end of this piece of paper. I reread and evaluated the last sentence, then revised by adding a word with the caret symbol. At this point, I transitioned to a Word document to continue working on my draft. While I typed the original handwritten draft, I continued to evaluate what I did as a writer and put my writing plan into action in a very similar recursive manner as just described, through planning, translating, and reviewing. While the example writing process in this video is from an adult perspective, Researchers and practitioners have studied and documented the writing processes of students from very young children all the way through 12th grade. Most research does support the use of the process approach as being more effective than other approaches in terms of improving writing attitudes and products. And when students receive explicit instruction in writing, they begin to take ownership of their own writing processes. Treating writing as a process where students are taught to plan, draft, revise, edit, and even share their work is also recommended for students with learning disabilities. All of this can be done while promoting an enthusiastic writing environment where teachers hold high expectations with planned support.